From Mamma Mia, welcome to the Spills Watch Party, where we unpack the biggest shows and movies that the whole world is talking about. My name's Manisha Warren, and I'm the executive producer of Mamma Mia's entertainment podcast, The Spill. And today I'm joined by
Ksenia Lukic. I'm one of the hosts of The Spill and a Wicked mega fan.
And I'm Brie Player. I'm the executive producer of No Filter here at Mamma Mia. I am also a Broadway super fan, which evolved into being a super big Wicked fan. I also have a background in women's magazines where I have had the opportunity to interview Ariana Grande and the OG stars of the stage production of Wicked, Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth.
We're very jealous and we can't wait to hear all about it. So we have all been counting down the days to this one, the release of Wicked for Good, which arguably the most anticipated film of 2025. And now it's out in the world, so it's time for us to do a proper watch party deep dive. So we're going to talk about everything, the film, the incredible costumes, the set, the critical reception, and the lore that really only true Wicked fans will appreciate. So lucky we have two of them here. And we're also going to get into any of the juicy nuggets from the press run and the Easter eggs the internet can't stop talking about, and who we think were the standout performances. So there's obviously going to be spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen Wicked for Good, hit pause, go watch it, and then come back for the ultimate post-movie debrief. So let's start things off by chatting about the standout performances in the film, and particularly the ones that we think are generating Oscar buzz. So I think we all sort of agree there was one big standout. Am I right in thinking we think Ariana Grande killed it?
Absolutely. Miss Ariana Grande killed it. This is her film. Like, without a doubt, this is her film. I think both girls were head-to-head in the first film, but to me, Ariana was really the key performer in this.
She really was born to play this role. And we know that, before the first film came out, we saw her auditioning for this part. We saw how excited she was, meeting Kristen Chenoweth backstage. And this has been such a huge part of her life. And you can really see that on screen because the passion she has for this particular character, for Glinda in the first one, Glinda, I wish she changes her name, is so obvious and she embodies it. And the nuanced performances she has in this particular movie is really, really remarkable. And we're not the only ones that think that. Like, this has become, the critics have been saying this as well.
And do we think that's obviously down to her performance, but also, Brie, do you think there's potentially more for Glinda's character arc in this second installment?
I do. I think, in the first film we saw that happen for Elphaba, for her character. I did feel like Cynthia didn't have as much story arc to work with in this one. It's quite, from start to finish of For Good, her character doesn't change as much as, say, what Glinda goes through in this film. So I think Ariana had so much to work with. There's definitely less humour in this film than there was in the first one, but the parts of humour that you do see in this film are all down to Ariana, and they're the bits that she gets to perform.
Well,
so
Glinda's character at the end of the first movie, that's kind of a loss of her innocence. That's the loss of her, the bursting of her bubble, if you will. But she really, this is her change. This is her going, okay, I can't just be superficial anymore. I can't just be popular. I have to actually do things for good and be a better person. And how am I going to do that when Madame Morrible is asking me to do one thing and then my friendship with Elphaba is trying to do something else? There's so much, text there to work with.
Yeah, and a lot more tension for her as well. So that's why we really got to see Ariana flex her acting chops more in this one than the others.
It is interesting because we know that the films were shot back to back. So as I understand it, Cynthia Erivo was saying they had like big mood boards of where their characters were at certain points in the film. So one day they could be shooting As Long As You're Mine, and then the next day she's shooting Popular. So they have to go back and forth a lot. So that would have been really challenging for all of the actors in the movies. But yes, you're right. Ariana does have so much more to work with.
One scene where I thought they were both quite equal, which I think we have to talk about because it's the title of the film, is For Good, the beautiful friendship song that they sing and I think moved a lot of people to tears in the theatre that we were in. Brie, you've actually interviewed the OG Broadway cast who made that song so powerful. What can you tell us about what it was like when you spoke to Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth?
So I've spoken to them at different points. It wasn't together, it wasn't for Wicked, but of course you can't speak to either of those incredible theatre like
icons
without talking about Wicked, because really that's what made them the performers that they are today. I do remember extensively, particularly talking to Idina about it, and she has so much love for Elphaba. I mean, we obviously got to see them both appear in that first film, which was so nice that there was that like
that little callback,
and that they were part of that whole experience. For both of them, those characters like live within them. And I think that's, you know, what we've seen as well from Cynthia and Ariana, the tattoos, the way that they're dressing. Like, I think that anyone who plays these characters, and actually I want to give a shout out to Gemma Ricks, who played Elphaba for quite a long time in Australia, because I've interviewed her too. And I know that anyone who takes on these roles, they do become part of who they are. And I think that I love is part of the female friendship bond. I think that's something that we relate to so much, and that when I have spoken to all of these women that have played these roles, Courtney Monsmer as well, who played Glinda in the most recent Australian production, they all talk about that female friendship, and you know, they have that connection with each other. I think that's what makes a good Wicked production.
Did you guys see Wicked One Wonderful Night?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so Wicked One Wonderful Night, it's actually streaming on Channel 7 now if you haven't seen it yet. So it was a television special that they did right before the launch of Wicked for Good as part of the marketing campaign. And they did all of this, a number of the songs. It was really, really incredible. I really encourage you to watch it if you haven't. And Idina, Kristen, Cynthia and Ariana all sung For Good together. And that, to show that, you know, female friendship across the generations of people who've performed these really iconic characters is really special. But that song is the penultimate song of this movie, and it is so important, and they definitely didn't disappoint in the movie.
No, they definitely really pulled that off, and there was so much pressure for them to do that when they've titled the movie after that song. So obviously Cynthia and Ariana were absolutely amazing. What did we think of the supporting cast and how they carried their roles by comparison?
I think it was really hard when Cynthia and Ariana are so wildly talented and so in their roles. There was a mix of how I felt about certain actors playing certain roles. I think some did a great job in the role that they were in. I think Jonathan Bailey did a great job. There were others that I didn't necessarily think were as good. But I do think that coming up in any scene with Cynthia or Ariana, no one else in the cast quite matched it. One thing I do want to say, though, who I think was brilliant, is Bowen Yang. I love
incredible.
Bowen Yang.
He's great.
I loved seeing him in this. I think he's so talented that he was underutilised, which the role is a small role.
That's a product of the fact that the second act is so much darker than the first. And Bowen Yang's strength is in his ability to be funny and his comedic timing. And he's actually a very good singer, surprisingly. But you're right, he was underutilized. He really does steal the screen when we see him. But I understand why they didn't utilize him as much in this second movie, because there's not really the space for it.
No, there's
That's
no
not
need.
the line.
But what I do hope, and I think will happen, is we will see Bowen in films going forward a lot more, which is
Absolutely.
great. That's if Lorne allows him.
Well, yeah, because Ariana spoke about how she really campaigned for him to be in this movie because he was going to have some conflicting projects with SNL and he wasn't going to be able to make the time to be on the show, and he really wanted to do it. So she personally called up SNL's executive producer, Lorne Michaels, to get him that in and make sure he was in the show.
Who's notoriously scary and doesn't let anyone do anything if they're on SNL. So.
Mr. SNL, absolutely. And she does the best impression of him, which we know Ariana is the master of impressions. But in that great chat where she talked about how she had to approach him and basically beg him to release Bowen. But the power of Ariana, she got what she wanted.
I initially wasn't going to be in Wicked due to an SNL conflict. But you called this person to ask him to let me do it.
Oh, yes.
Did he give you any pushback?
Yes. He said, "Hello, Ariana, what do you want?" And I said, "Hi, Lauren. Oh, my goodness. I miss you. It's so good to speak to you. I miss you." And he said, "Yes, what's going on?" And I said, I would do anything if we could make it happen for Bowen to come be in Wicked. And he said, "Well, the reason why you want to..." Is this fine? Should I stop?
Yeah,
I'm going to put it down.
No, the
'cause I
sense
sound sick.
memory is I smell the popcorn. I'm in 30 Rock right now. It's Saturday.
Yeah. And he said, "Well, he's everyone's favorite on the show, and that's why you want him to be in Wicked so badly, and that's why, so we need him to be in the show. But if you can work something out.
And we did.
And we did.
Can we talk a little bit about Michelle Yeoh?
We can, yes.
I know a lot of people really liked her in that Madame Morrible role. However, that role, that is the antagonist. This is our key evil person in this movie. I just didn't believe it.
Same. I completely agree. I actually feel the same for Jeff Goldblum, and I think they are both incredible actors. I have seen them in so many films, and they nail it, and they're brilliant, and I have nothing but respect for what they do. I just don't feel like they were suited to these roles. I didn't buy it.
I know and again, it's such a shame because I do love both of them as actors, but I definitely feel the same way. Although generally the consensus amongst critics has been that both of them were still quite powerful and good in those roles. So maybe it's just us.
Maybe it's just you two, didn't
maybe it's just us two that we're not in line with the rest of the critics.
So let's talk a bit about Oscar buzz. So what do you guys think about this, which is from the executive editor of awards coverage at The Hollywood Reporter, Scott Feinberg. So he says both women are excellent in the film, but Erivo in the Best Actress race will be up against stiffer competition because she's up against Hamnet's Jessie Buckley and Sentimental Values' Renata Reinsve. But Ariana Grande, he says, is the new and clear frontrunner for Best Supporting Actress because between the two Wicked films, she's given this tour de force performance that the Academy has a hard time resisting in that category especially. So he said, think about Jennifer Hudson for Dreamgirls, Ariana DeBose for West Side Story, and Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. They all won those categories. And he's saying this pairing of an actress and a part in a musical thinks the Academy will find that hard to resist. Do you guys agree? Do you think she's getting an Oscar?
This will be a very, very key time for her between now and Oscars. You just have to look back at Eddie Murphy when he did the Dreamgirls movie and was up for an Oscar. Everyone was really pushing for him to get an Oscar. Between the movie's release and the Oscars, he did Norbit and the whole thing fell apart. So the next few months are going to be very key for Ariana to really keep on the Wicked train. But I do think she can get this because I was blown away by her performance. She is Glinda. Actually, I think she's more Glinda than she is Ariana now. She's fully turned into Glinda.
Just view her as Glinda.
She's Glinda now. You watch her in interviews and she is her.
Yeah, she's really embodied that character. What do you think, Brie? Do you reckon she's an Oscar winner?
I do, and I really, really want to see her take it out. I think she deserves it. I think Ariana is one of the hardest working people in the entertainment industry. She has always worked her butt off in her career as a singer, as a pop star, and we have seen, her churn out album after album, and they are hits, solid hits. That is something that, really came across in the times that I have experienced her albums coming out during working at magazines like Dolly, where we had her on the cover when Dangerous Woman came out. She is all about the hard work. She puts in those hours and she clearly did it for this. I also think what's really interesting is what you said about how between now and the Oscars is a really key time, because the Oscars, we know, is not just about the performance that you give in the film. It's also about how you present yourself in the lead up to the Oscars. Something that's really key that I've noticed in this promo cycle for Wicked that wasn't last promo cycle is that she's brought on Roach to dress her.
Yeah.
And
are we talking about the black dress?
We are everything that she has worn has been unbelievable. So many archival things that she's wearing on red carpets everywhere. They're not doing as much press for this one. We can all see that. We know that. But that is very strategic to bring on Law, who famously is Zendaya's stylist. Girlie wants that Oscar.
Yeah, and Law was her stylist before. They kind of took a little break from each other, came back together, and creatively have been really working on this. And you're talking about some archival stuff. The black really ruffled dress that she wears at the London premiere, that was archival from the original costume designer of The Wizard of Oz, not for The Wizard of Oz obviously specifically, but for a different movie that he did. But that's how deep they are going.
Well, she's obviously putting a lot into the press run in the lead up to all this. This movie in general had so much less sort of fuss around it than the first one when it comes to the press run. Why do we think there was such a significant difference?
If we think about the first movie, that was introducing a new audience to the Wicked universe, because the two viewers for this movie are going to be original super fans of Wicked, of the stage show, and then it's going to be bringing new people in. So having that press run of really getting that marketing out. We saw the Wicked premiere last year here in Sydney. They flew the stars out. It was absolutely insane, the amount of money that they poured into it. Then there's a 4-year break between the two movies. You don't want to get that fatigue if you keep pushing it. Also, the content of this particular movie is much darker. It's much more serious. It's much more dramatic. They want to get that residual heat from the first movie and bring it through to the second one and rely on the fact that people are already invested from the first one without giving them sort of a sense of fatigue by pushing it so hard.
So there's so much that goes into the lore of Wicked that far precedes these films. Brie, I know you are an absolute superfan who's across all the iterations of this. Give us a little rundown to people who might not know the ins and outs before seeing the film.
A Wicked history lesson, if you will.
So, I mean, of course we know that this has all been pegged off The Wizard of Oz, the 1939 classic starring Judy Garland. Mm-hmm. Now, Wicked, the musical, was marketed as being, you know, here's what happened before Dorothy dropped in, obviously physically dropping in the house in the tornado. So what I think a lot of people don't know, we know that this film is based on Wicked the musical, which has been hugely successful, came out in 2003. But there is, of course, Wicked the book, which came out first. And that was in 1995. That's a book by Gregory Maguire. And that is what the musical was based off. So Stephen Schwartz, who wrote the lyrics and the music for Wicked, took it off this book by Gregory Maguire. Now that book continues on. There's 3 more books after that. So who knows? This may not be the end of what we see from Wicked films.
Oh my God.
I don't know. But, you know, if you really want like full detail, because we always know that the book gives you much more detail. If you've watched these films and you've really enjoyed these films, that book's available, and so are the ones after that, where you can really immerse yourself into the whole Wicked universe. And then Wicked, of course, has now been accepted as like canon for the Wizard of Oz universe, which is so much greater. There are also other subsequent films that came out after the Wizard of Oz. There was The Return of Oz, The Land of Oz. That world is so big. Now, we do know a lot about the Wicked universe, but I do want to also point out that on TikTok is this creator called the Oz Vlog. Now, if I have, say, a degree in Wicked and the Wizard of Oz universe, she's got fully fledged doctorate, PhD, whatever you can rack up. She has been at uni her entire life, basically, learning all there is to know. This woman, unbelievable, is a collector. She has the most epic collection of Wizard of Oz and Wicked merch and all sorts of things that you wouldn't even believe they made. I mean, we've seen how much Wicked stuff has been for sale in stores over the last, 2 years that this movie's have been rolling out. She has so many incredible items.
We need to get her on the pod.
She is incredible. Like talking about the history of the ruby slippers and, where they came from, them not being originally red, all of that.
Yes. So she's basically quit her job and is a full-time Wizard of Oz historian. So if you have any questions about the Wizard of Oz and the Wicked universe,
you can find them on TikTok.
Yeah, you can find them on TikTok on the Oz Vlog.
So obviously there's been so many different iterations and things have changed along the way from the 2003 original Broadway stage show to now. So one of the key changes has been that with the character of Nessarose, who's obviously in a wheelchair, this scene where Elphaba comes back to see her towards the end of the movie, she fixes her legs and it's meant to be this whole thing of like, wow, your life is so much better now, which was quite badly perceived as a society. We've evolved involved, and it is seen as quite ableist, as if how could your life be great when you're in a wheelchair? It's going to be so much better if you can walk. So they've now changed it, and the film does feature this changed version where she instead gains the ability to fly because it's a magical interpretation rather than just changing her legs. So that's one of the big differences people have picked up on.
Yeah, so in the original stage production, the 2003, Elphaba casts a spell on the shoes, which is why the shoes are so significant. The shoes then allow Nessarose to walk and she sort of turns into the Wicked Witch of the East. I think they did the right thing by changing it. I think that as a society, we've developed since 2003 and since the original iteration of these books, and it was a really important point to keep the Nessarose character in the wheelchair rather than changing it. The director, John M. Chu, has said that it was very, very important to him to have an actual wheelchair user in the role of Nessarose, and they searched high and low during the casting process to find an actor to fit this role. And I'm so glad that they did, because it gave us Marissa Bode, who gave a really strong performance as Nessarose, and someone else who has a really big character change and progression from the first act to the second act. Although I do feel as though it could be, if you're not familiar with the stage show, quite jarring to see her all of a sudden feel quote unquote evil from act 1 to act 2.
It did feel like quite an abrupt change, I do agree. So one of the other things that to me felt quite different from the stage version to the film, and it really stood out to me, it was all I could talk about after seeing it, was As Long As You're Mine. So that build up that we have between Fiyero and Elphaba, and it's meant to be the sexy moment where they have a passionate kiss and they hook up for the first time, really.
And making love in a castle, baby.
Well, Not really in the movie. It was very G-rated in the film. It felt like a very dialed down version. When they start singing, they're sort of walking around the little area where Elphaba's living while she's hiding out being a recluse. And it takes them ages to even really get together and look each other in the eye and start singing to each other. Whereas I remember seeing the stage show and the really hot, steamy moment of them both being on their knees and like holding each other. And even the line where she says, for the first time, I feel wicked. There's so much sexual tension there. That was quite different in the film. Do we know anything about why that was?
John M. Chu has spoken to this because this is a very key part. So he says, the song As Long As You're Mine, I think it feels sensual, not because they're like physical, because actually in the stage show, they're much more physical. They're together already. From the very beginning, she goes, kiss me fiercely. In this movie, they're actually apart. There's hesitation. They don't even know what the other's going to say. So we really wanted that to have, instead of just a song about them together, it's a song about will they, won't they, how are they going to find each other? And then, through the course of the song, Fiyero looks at the propaganda proclaiming Elphaba as an evil person who wants to destroy all of Oz's citizens. He looks at her and he's like, wow, you've survived all of this and you're still kind and you are beautiful. And he says, you're beautiful. And I think that intimacy, getting them closer in the song, actually makes it feel more sensual, even though they're not actually physically doing anything.
See, hearing that makes a lot of sense now, having seen it on screen, because I see what they were trying to do. I don't know that it quite landed. Like, he's already hopped on a broom and got off with her. I'm like, I think you're together now.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Brie?
Look, listening to that, I think that's nice that that's what they tried to do. I don't think they did it. Firstly, I actually don't think there was much chemistry between Fiyero and Elphaba. I felt a lot more chemistry between Glinda and Fiyero.
I felt more chemistry between Glinda and Elphaba sexually.
Oh, absolutely. It just wasn't there. And I mean, it could have.
Again, not a criticism of the actors themselves.
Not at all. They're both brilliant. It just sometimes there just isn't the chemistry there between two actors. They can be brilliant. They can be brilliant in their roles, but there's just that something extra, that spark, that sizzle. Spice, that sizzle. It wasn't there. So that scene did fall a bit flat. Now, there is obviously a lot of kids going to see this film as well. So they can say that they were trying to...
The rating maybe played into it.
Yes, I do think that.
Definitely.
And no one wants to say that. No director wants to say, oh, well, there's a lot of kids in the audience. We can't have, a really spicy scene going on. But, yeah, that was a bit disappointing, I think.
You know what? I watched them get it on in the stage show when I was 8 and I've turned out fine. So I think they could have put it in the film.
I agree.
So obviously this is part 2 of the 2-part movies, and it really did feel like a follow-on. We picked up pretty much right where we left off with the other one. How do you guys feel that it impacted you as a viewer watching it over 2 parts a year apart?
That, I think, is probably one of the most challenging things about this movie. Obviously, we know movie 1, act 1, movie 2, act 2. The problem with that is act 1 is in itself, it can kind of exist in its own universe. You can watch the first half and be okay. Obviously, you want to know what happens after Defying Gravity, but that is still a full movie. Act 2, I don't think can exist on its own as well. So I would say that the second movie really does need to be watched directly after the first one. So if you've gone to the movies, you've watched it and you felt a little bit like confused, go home, watch the first one and then rewatch the second one, and I think you'll have a much better experience because there are a lot of throwback little things that happen in the first movie, i.e. first act, that you need for the second act. One of my favorite ones is in Dancing Through Life when Fiero says, "Life is painless for the brainless," and then he turns into the Scarecrow, who is brainless because the Scarecrow doesn't have a brain.
Yeah, you need that little moment.
You need that. I mean, I know that's a very obvious one, but for those people who didn't see the stage show and then were surprised to see Fiero turn into the Scarecrow, all you need to do is listen to Dancing Through Life.
Yeah, there's little Easter eggs being dropped. I also think coming off the crescendo of Defying Gravity towards the end of part 1 and being left there, when you watch that in the stage show and then you go away for your 20 minutes, you're like raring to get back into it. We almost needed a little bit of Defying Gravity or something at the start to launch us back into that story. Did you have a similar feeling, Brie?
So, well, yes, very much so. And controversially, and I haven't spoken to either of you about that, I actually think they should have just done one film.
I do too.
Okay, here we go.
Sorry.
No.
I am not one to complain about a long movie that is based on a stage show. I love me some theatre. Give me it all. I want to get all of it. Give me 6 hours of it. But I do tend to agree.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry. Wicked fans, please don't kill us.
No, but we are Wicked fans, and I would have loved to have seen a much tighter edit and to be one film rather than 2 films. And that was my biggest takeaway from it. I do think it hits all the right notes in the first film. I loved it. I really, really enjoyed that. But I do feel like it was just too laboured coming into the second film. And I think it would have been a perfect film if they had made one film.
Commercially, the songs that have become the most popular are all in the first act. As a general rule, the second act doesn't have as many popular songs in it, apart from For Good.
Which is so interesting that they called it For Good, because the first one is called Wicked Part 1. So it makes sense to then call it Wicked Part 2. I think they called it Wicked For Good to remind everyone, like, hey, hang in there. There is a really, really, really good song, and you have to, like, wait it out, but it's worth it when you get to it.
Yeah, we've got some great reprises, though. You know, I'm Not That Girl reprise.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really wonderful song. It's actually one of my favourite songs from the whole musical. We get that reprise from Ariana, and I think that that's really powerful. But, yeah, For Good is really the...
It's not the sing-along. I did find when I saw the first one, I mean, I had to, like...
Close your
Shut
mouth.
yourself
Yeah,
up.
I had to shut myself up, you know, and actually a few seats down from me was a friend who leaned across and said, "You singing this and I'm going to kill you." So, you know, and it was hard. Whereas this one, I kind of joked walking into it like, sorry if I sing. I didn't sing.
Feel the urge.
No, I didn't feel the urge.
I do agree with you about the titling though, because as a consumer, that to me, because I was thinking, what happens again in the latter half of it that I need to get excited about? And then you're like, oh, the friendship arc, the pivotal moment where they're going to look at each other with tear-filled eyes. So I think that was quite smart titling on their behalf.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about Wicked, you really think about all the creative elements that go into it, because the creativity in these films is off the charts. So next, we are going to get into the behind the scenes of all the creative elements and the production of Wicked for Good. So I reckon let's start off with the costumes, because I don't know about you guys, but I thought they were a huge standout in this film.
Absolute highlight for me. And if anything, if I did say it was worth doing 2 films, it was for the costumes alone, especially the ones that Ariana wore. They were out of this world.
There's some really interesting quotes from the costume designer Paul Tazewell about Glinda's wardrobe and how we're seeing her mature into womanhood and also the pawn of good for the Emerald City, and that she's being manipulated into an icon of goodness. And he said he wanted her to really look fit for royalty. He said it was this idea of Dior meets Marie-Antoinette, and he said she had this level of power yet also this soft and feminine quality to her, and there are a lot of layered fabrics with tulle and organza. And at the start of the second film, she descends from her bubble for the first time, and she's in this blue and lilac fairy tale gown. And he said that its silhouette is inspired by the dress that Billy Burke wears as Glinda in The Wizard of Oz. So much lore going into the costuming there, isn't there?
Amazing. I think one thing that I think is really important to point out is the costume designer obviously nails it in both films and was one of the only Oscars that Wicked won for the first film. The costume designer, Paul Tazewell, also has a history as not so much a film costumer, but a theatre costumer, which I think is really interesting to bring that here. And I think that's why he's absolutely nailed it and done such a great job. It's the theatrics, which was so important to bring to the camera, those like huge gowns that are made to be seen in a theatre that wouldn't necessarily always be brought into a film, but in this film really gave it that Wicked quality.
Now, Brie, you also were very eagle-eyed
Oh, right.
in the first movie versus the second movie. Can you
Yes.
tell us what you found? Because I need people to know this.
Okay, so in the first film, there's the rack that's in front of Elphaba's little corner of Glinda's dorm, where it's racked up with dresses, mostly by a British label called Needle and Thread. Now, I recognised a lot of those dresses. I actually had 2 of those dresses, and my bestie had a couple of them too.
Oh my God, get her in the film.
Now, I noticed in this film, at the beginning, there's a moment where Glinda is carrying a dress, and it's one of those needle and thread dresses from the first film. And then you do see her wardrobe briefly in this film. God, I would have loved to have had a really good sticky beak through it. But what I did notice when they flashed into her wardrobe was I saw a lot of the outfits that she wore in the first one hanging in the wardrobe, including that iconic robe that she wears when she sings Popular. So I love that Glinda's an outfit repeater and she holds on to things, sustainable queen.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to see that correlation and to kind of go, oh, I remember those those gowns from the first one, because she does dress differently. But I think it's interesting that Paul referenced Marie-Antoinette, because Marie-Antoinette had that position of power, but it was an illusion of power. She didn't actually have any true power. And we do get that sense with Glinda as well. So those big kind of sort of French 15th century sunking era gowns that she wore that were inspired by that look that Marie-Antoinette wore, that I think that correlation is really interesting that he made, and that he specifically said Marie-Antoinette meets Dior.
Yeah, well, I mean, Glinda is the mouthpiece for Oz now, and she's been thrust into this position of being the face of it and damning Elphaba. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that kind of presented to everyone all dolled up, that illusion of perfection as well.
I need to talk about Bok turning into the Tin Man. So when I saw Ethan Slater as the Tin Man for the first time, I gasped. I thought it was absolutely spectacular. It was incredibly true to the original Tin Man that we had in the 1939 Wizard of Oz. The original costume designer of The Wizard of Oz was a man called Adrian Adolf Greenberg, and he created the Tin Man costume. I loved that they kept the essence of the Tin Man, elevating it for, with more CGI and a little bit more detailed, but it was so true to the original Tin Man, and it made me very, very, very happy.
I absolutely agree. And I also have to say, Ethan Slater was brilliant in this film.
He did a great job.
He did a great job, but the way he moved as the Tin Man was unreal as well. Now, you said you had to talk about the Tin Man in this film.
I'm scared now where we're going
have
next.
to talk about the Scarecrow.
Oh, God.
I have to talk about what they did
Yes.
to Jonathan Bailey, which is, and this is the only way to describe it, they upholstered a burlap sack to his face and made it true to form, face like skin tight across his face.
It's pretty horrific.
It is horrific. I think they tried to make him hot.
Yes.
Because
yes,
Jonathan
it really
Bailey
worked.
is hot.
Sexiest man alive, obviously.
People's sexiest man alive. You know what is not hot?
A Scarecrow.
Jonathan Bailey as the Scarecrow plastered onto his face like that.
I was really excited when I saw Bok as the Tin Man because I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to do the Scarecrow in a elevated nod to the original. I was really excited about it, but it felt very CGI. It was very artificial. And we only saw a few glimpses of him. It was very, very quick. And I'm wondering if there were more scenes shot with Jonathan Bailey as the Scarecrow with like him in full face. Because basically they don't show his face right until the very end. We only see the sort of the back of him. I'm wondering if they shot more and then removed it.
Then realised the error of their ways when they saw what he actually looked like. I'm glad they didn't show more of him because, I mean, you girls were sitting next to me.
You were struggling to hold it together.
Well, I didn't hold it together. I was laughing so hard at such an emotional scene because of how horrendous the Scarecrow looked that I nearly had to excuse myself and walk out. So it just was the only, to me, failing on the costume.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Cynthia Erivo has talked very openly about when they first started production for Wicked, they basically gave her two options. They said, you can either paint yourself green every day or we can do it in CGI. And she said, I want you to paint me every day because I want to look into a mirror and see Elphaba. I want to be her. I don't want to do it in post. I'm wondering if they gave the same option to Jonathan Bailey and he said, go do the CGI. I don't want to sit in makeup for 10 hours.
So is there anything from the actual creative team about why they did it?
Yes, there is actually. Okay, so I did find a piece because I went home and I had to know why they made this choice about Jonathan Bailey and the Scarecrow. So they said they particularly wanted to keep Jonathan Bailey's face shape. So say they wanted to make the Scarecrow sexy. We also kept his nice teeth and natural eye colour, which is interesting because he wears contacts as Fiyero. So it was interesting to then make that choice as the Scarecrow to keep his natural eye colour. Whether it was because, as you pointed out earlier, a lot of people don't know that Fiyero turns into the Scarecrow. So maybe it was like a sort of call out to people who weren't aware, like newcomers to the movie, to see that connection between it being Jonathan Bailey.
There would have been other ways for them to figure it out.
I mean, yeah, we could have like the like that scene. You could have had so much more of that transformation there. Sorry, continue.
So they go on and they say, then for the head element, which we haven't got to yet, but the straw hair, I put masses of gold blonde through his look as Fiyero, which we did see that kind of beautiful caramel colour on Jonathan Bailey, which carried onto the Scarecrow in a straw-coloured wig. Look, this is not a wig that anyone will be, rushing out to buy, I don't think. And it says that kept Fiyero attractive because Elphaba and he fall in love.
She's green. It's fine.
The whole point of this movie is to not care about looks.
But that's only the case for Elphaba, apparently.
Maybe the timing.
This seems sexist, like reverse sexism.
Maybe the timing of Sexiest Man Alive coming out, they knew it was coming. He was like, it doesn't really work with my image. I've got to be a bit of a hot Scarecrow. I don't know. Did that play a factor?
Yeah, maybe it did, but unfortunately it didn't land.
It was really sad. I was really disappointed. It made it funny. It made the end funny, which it's not supposed to be.
It's not supposed to be funny.
It's them escaping for their lives together. They're leaving Oz and having a life together. And it takes you out.
I am hoping that we do get to see a lot of people next Halloween trying to emulate the Scarecrow and seeing if anyone can actually pull it off being sexy. Because I do feel like if Jonathan Bailey can't pull it off.
Heidi Klum.
Sorry. Have you not gone into like a party shop and seen like the sexy Scarecrow? At least they've got sexy Scarecrow costume. Put him in a short skirt.
Well, I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
So before we get on to talking about Elphaba's costumes in this particular one, I want to just put in a little tidbit here that I found. Cynthia Erivo says she wore the same scent every day for her character as Elphaba to help her get into character. Like, how smell really helps you connect to things. So she got it from a brand called Vireo. And the scent is called Witchy Woo.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that wonderful?
That's
I just could so Cynthia see her doing that with her big nails.
It's so good. And she's like, I thought this was so on the nose when I saw it, but then the scent was really great. But if you guys want to wear Elphaba's perfume, it's Vireo and it's called Witchy Woo.
You can get it in time for Christmas.
Love that.
I think it's easy to gloss over her costumes in comparison to Glinda because obviously Glinda's are so ostentatious. She kind of, her whole thing is being green and then she wears black. The costume designer sort of talked a little bit about how as she withdraws further into the forest and into herself, we see her signature black cloak deteriorate and become increasingly distressed. And her tunic is the dress that she wears at the end of Wicked, and her duster coat is actually her raincoat from that first film too. And he says that seeing them degrade is to see her shed all that society has put onto her to realize herself in a very honest and authentic way. So sort of everything that's happening to her clothes as the film progresses is synonymous with what's happening for her internally. What did you guys make of her costume?
Look, I loved her costumes. I thought they were so fashion and so dark, and I felt like I could see what was on that mood board. I could see a lot of Rick Owens. I could see Alexander McQueen when Alexander McQueen was there and, you know, when Lee McQueen was designing for his own label. And it was just like dark, moody, lots of tears, lots of, you know, lace work and things like that. It was just so deconstructed, which makes sense. And what you're saying about her kind of shedding that buttoned upness that she had in the first film. And obviously they're at college in the first film, there's a sort of uniform vibe to what they're doing, and she's trying so hard to fit in. And now that she's not, you know, we're seeing that in her costumes, which was just epic. One costume I do want to point out is the sexy kind of underwear vibe that she wears with the cardigan, long matted kind of knitted cardigan.
In As Long As You're Mine.
In As Long As You're Mine. And you don't really get to see much of it in the film, but I did see a still shot of it today. And the work in it is incredible. So everything's so well thought out.
You can also see a lot of like punk influences.
Totally,
which is so appropriate.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, those punk influences are perfect because punk was all about, you know, standing up against the establishment, which is core to the Elphaba character.
Yeah, I feel like she wouldn't be out of place breaking into song, like heading up a band, especially in that little short.
Well, she does break into song, Mon. It's a musical.
I guess that is what she's there for. Well, speaking of breaking into song, there are 2 original songs in part 2. We didn't have any original music in part 1, but this one features one for Ariana Grande, which is The Girl in the Bubble, and one sung by Cynthia Erivo, which is No Place Like Home, when she's rallying the animals to stand up against the establishment and join her in the fight. For me, these songs, they were interesting. I mean, I appreciate that the creative team would have wanted to put their own spin on things. I'm not sure they quite landed for me in comparison when you have these amazing original songs already ready to go. What did you guys think of those scenes?
So Stephen Schwartz actually did write these songs as well. So it's the original composer. The reason that they've put these in, and it's very clear, is so that they are eligible for Oscars. That's the core reason.
Yeah, because they can't enter the old songs into that best new song category because they're not new songs. But here we've got 2 packaged up new songs, and by, honestly, 2 of the best singers that are in the game right now. So, you know, I hope we do get to see the girls up on stage at the Oscars singing them. I don't necessarily think they'll be winning them.
I think it's also one of those things where it might be a repeat listen. We're so used to the original soundtrack that it can be a bit jarring to hear something out of it. I would almost guarantee the people who didn't know that they were new songs would see that there was any difference. I know people who haven't seen the stage show or know the music would not feel out of place.
I agree. I just also don't think that they were standouts though.
Yeah.
I am not desperate to listen to them over and over and over. The same way that the first time I saw the musical, I walked out and needed to listen to Defying Gravity immediately, For Good immediately, Popular immediately. These aren't ones that I'm grasping for straight away to listen to.
Ariana Grande has actually said that she liked singing The Girl in the Bubble because it was almost a way for her to shed and explore her character more on stage rather than it would have happened in the wings in the stage show, but in the movie she can kind of do that more in front of the cameras, flesh it out a little bit. John M. Chu has said about the song, what happens when you're someone like Glinda who has the bubble of protection where you don't ever have to deal with the truth if you don't want to? Are you able to pop your bubble of privilege? He's very good at explaining his reasoning.
And his little explainers help me get there.
Yeah, it helps me get there too. I understand it. And, you know, we get the metaphor of popping the bubble. But yeah, Glinda has lived this privilege her whole life. We see that in Popular. No, less fortunate than I, who isn't less fortunate than I. And now she's forced to actually see what the consequences of her actions are. So I understand the concept of it. I don't think it feels out of place, but I don't think it will be winning any Oscars.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily adds to it in the way that they were probably hoping it would add to it. But I do like that both women get their own song and their own moment, because they will forever be, for a lot of people coming to see Wicked for the first time, Cynthia and Ariana will forever be Glinda and Elphaba to so many people. So it is nice that they did get their own moment and their own song that wasn't them doing something that has been done before.
Can we just do a quick shout out to the Cowardly Lion?
Of course.
Coleman Domingo, which was a great little cameo.
Very cute casting.
That's all I have to say, but I just wanted to shout out his name because I love him. But yes, we got the Cowardly Lion was Coleman Domingo.
Well, there is another casting sort of situation that people had a lot to say about, which is that everybody in the lead up to this wanted to know who was going to play Dorothy in the film. Not that it ended up mattering because they keep her face hidden. We don't actually get to see her. But there was so much speculation. So people thought it could be Alicia Weir, Dove Cameron, Maddie Ziegler. People were saying Taylor Swift. I was like, as if Taylor Swift's going to come and be Dorothy in Wicked. There was so much being thrown around about it. Were you thinking about who was going to be Dorothy?
No, definitely not. And I think anyone who loves and knows Wicked knows that actually Dorothy doesn't really matter.
No.
She is not the central character here. And I know she's the reference point for the whole of the Wizard of Oz universe, of which Wicked is a part of. But if we hark back to the original tagline of Wicked, it was a lot happened before Dorothy dropped in. So while Dorothy does feature in this film, and as you pointed out, you only see the back of her because the point of it is like she's not
the focus.
She's not the focus. She's not the one driving the story here. She drives the story going forward after this. But it doesn't matter who plays Dorothy in this because she's not really a central character.
The way that they shot it felt very, very reminiscent of those 1930s, 40s movies where they do a little shadow play. And I really loved that reference in there. It doesn't matter who Dorothy is. She's completely inconsequential to the story. The only reason that she's important is because of the shoes.
Yeah.
Because Elphaba wants her shoes back because they
totally.
That's
and
the only
because
reason.
Her house drops on the Wicked Witch of the East, which we know. The other thing that I thought was really interesting when people were debating about who it was going to be, I thought, well, I actually can't think right now of a lot of standout child stars that you would put in this role, because let's not forget, Dorothy Gale is like a 14-year-old
She's young.
girl. She's young, 14, 15, 16. She's not an adult. So if you're looking around now, it's not like there are a whole heap of standout child stars in the way that there were, say, 10 years ago when your Millie Bobby Browns and stuff were young. So I thought it was really interesting that people were sort of clamoring to think who would play that role, because I couldn't even really think of someone that if it was, that was famous, for me, it would have had to have been a newcomer anyway.
Yeah, and I agree that there aren't a lot of child stars at the moment that would come to mind, which is probably why all the fan theories were about adult actors.
Yeah.
Because as you were saying, Millie Bobby Brown, back in the day, would have been Dakota Fanning or one of those big people. They would have probably made the role bigger just to showcase said star, but given in the film we don't actually see their face, it sort of ended up being a bit of a non-issue. One thing that we do see the face of, which I think all thought was quite cute when we watched it, were the number of Aussie animals that seem to feature in the Oz Animal universe.
It's very interesting, isn't it? It's unexpected.
Yeah, and I don't even think we noticed them just because we're Australian and that we were looking for them. They really get a starring role in the animal menagerie that appears in this film. There is the most gorgeous koala that gets a lot of screen time. Well, almost more than Bowen, I would say.
Yes,
more than Dorothy.
But everybody loves koalas. I mean, have you guys seen Sing? It's the core character.
Yeah. So that was really fun to see. And of course, the land of Oz.
So maybe this is the proof we needed all along that Oz is Australia. I mean, they did their premiere last time here.
Exactly.
So there were kangaroos, there were wombats. What more do we need?
Yeah, little wallaby hopping along.
And just in general, this movie is a beautiful feast for the eyes. Everywhere you look, the world is just brought to life in such a beautiful, magic way, isn't it?
Well, we know that they grew all those tulips. We know that the amount of work that went into these sets, it kind of makes me think about the amount of detail they put into them. I would pay serious money to do a set visit.
Absolutely. And I would love to see a behind the scenes that really showed off the sets and the costumes.
And
which
the
we were
detail,
speaking.
like the detail, because you just know, I've seen Hollywood productions behind the scenes before, the amount of detail they put on, like on the shelves in the background when no one will ever see, there will be key details. Can someone please do it? I will go to a theme park that is Wicked themed and I will go. I just want to walk.
100%.
I want to walk in Munchkin Land. I
Yeah.
want to walk on the yellow
You know
brick
what
road.
I really want to explore is that epic Gothic castle that Elphaba goes to.
Oh,
Yeah.
Glinda's wardrobe.
And I mean, like I could be happy there.
I would
Be like, just leave me there
set
for a
up
few
shop
hours.
there.
Yeah.
Well, they do it for Harry Potter with Universal Studios and that
I
kind of thing
know.
where you can go
Absolutely.
through. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see that happen down
Oh my
the
God,
line.
a Wicked ride would be so good.
Yeah.
An entire Wicked Land would be epic and like take my money. I'm there.
I would be so there.
So just to bring things to a head,
Mm-hmm.
I know we have some positive thoughts and some negative thoughts, but out of 5, Ksenia, what are we giving Wicked for good?
4 out of 5.
Okay, solid. Brie?
I'm going to preface it by saying the first film I would give 4.5 out of 5.
Oh, it's coming. What's she going to say?
2.5.
2.5. Wow.
Okay, see, I'm giving it because I still, like, it could have been terrible and I still would have given it 4 out of 5 because I still love
So
it.
invested.
Because I'm so invested in the universe. I have my criticism. I understand where you're coming from, Brie. I really do. But, like, would you have been more sad if it wasn't there? Like, they just didn't have it?
I still wish they had just done
One
one
big film.
solid, perfect
Yeah.
film. A 5 out of 5-star film is what I would have liked. Just one.
All right. Well, let us know in the
What
comments.
about you? Hang on.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Don't jump. Don't
Hey.
Don't close up just yet. You're not getting out of this.
Well, I would have given the first film a 5
Me
and
too.
this film a 3.5. So a little bit of a drop off there, but I'm not quite as harsh as Brie. Let us know in the comments what you guys thought Wicked for Good rated out of 5 because we're curious to see if you agree with us.